Well, hey there, guys. Welcome to Storytime. I'm Cerise Fairfax. This is my channel. If you are new here, then get ready. When we do Storytime, we talk about love, lies, lust, and lessons. Well, today's story is a very different one. It's always about relationships and stuff of that nature and some type of seediness that's going on with people and things around the world. But today is a little bit of a modern one slash deceitful one. All right, so let's get down to basics. There's three major players in this story time. We're going to name them. Gosh, I always come up with the names at the last minute, but we're going to name them sea, water, and ocean. You guys know I just like to protect the people in the story. So sea is going to be the guy. Okay, water is going to be the wife. Ocean is going to be the surrogate mother, the Dominican surrogate mother. So Ocean was brought up here in the Dominican Republic, and most of her family has left her to go to America. So she was here, she was trying to, live a good life, and she ended up being on a little bit on the streets, and then working every now and again in hotels, and then every now and again, cleaning homes. It was difficult for her because she always wanted to just have a normal job and not work on the streets as a sex worker, but at the same time, she was making better money doing that. So every now and again, she would jump out of the profession and then she would go get a regular 9 to 5 type of thing, right? Which doesn't really pay as much, and it definitely wasn't paying the bills, but it was at least something that she was hoping to meet what she said a higher quality foreigner. All right. So let's break it down like this. We have Ocean, she's working, and then we have Sea and Water. They're married. They're living in America together. And as they're living in America together, Water, she couldn't have any babies. They tried. And what happened is she had perfectly good eggs, but she couldn't hold a child to the full term. They tried twice, and the baby died both times. So it wasn't about the sperm and it wasn't about the eggs. It was about Water not being able to hold them. So C said to Water one day, look, we need a surrogate. We both want to have children. We love each other. The only way that we can actually become parents is if we get someone else to have the child for us. So it was more about DNA than it was geography, right? It doesn't matter where the baby was, just as long as the baby was their sperm and their egg. They didn't want to adopt. So they were looking for a surrogate, and all the surrogates that were presented to them just wasn't to their liking. So C, he decided that he was going to contact a family member here in the Dominican Republic. You see, C, he is part Dominican and part Cuban. And so he wanted to give somebody an opportunity, but all his family in Cuba were men. He had one family member here, and her name was Ocean. So he contacted Ocean, and he was like, hey, look, I have a proposition for you. Why don't you come here, and if the process works for you to be a surrogate and everything takes hold, then we will sponsor you and help you stay in America. Well, Ocean didn't have to be asked twice. She went to America on a visa. They did the operation, the procedure, and it took. She was pregnant. So now C, he worked for the embassy, and when he was there, he was like, you know what? Like when he was at work, he told one of the higher ups, he said, look, we just want to make sure that her visa stays put. It's a really good visa, ironclad, and we don't want to go through all the red tape. Can we just, move her file really fast because she's pregnant, and we just want to make sure our child is kept safe. On their end, on C and Ocean's end, everything was dealt with fast, quickly, properly. Everything was good. And Ocean had a really good home to stay in their home. in their basement. They fixed it up amazingly, and she also had her own entrance, so it wasn't like she was like in a basement, in a dungeon. It was her own apartment, and she really loved it. And so she wasn't even showing until she was 6 months pregnant. So for the first 6 months, it was like she wasn't even pregnant. They didn't keep her captive. So she was allowed to go out and go to restaurants, go to the movies, meet people online, and they actually encouraged it. They wanted her to go out and have a wonderful life. They lived in Florida, and they wanted her to go out and have a wonderful life and get to see people, get to know people, because they wanted her mindset, her serotonin, and her body to be positive. They didn't want her in the dark basement, not getting enough sunlight and everything. So they really enjoyed and encouraged her when she was going out meeting people. They had no clue she was on Tinder. They thought she was like on Facebook groups and stuff of that nature. Well, she was on Tinder, and she was going out and meeting men. Now, when she was 3 months pregnant, she met a guy. He didn't know she was pregnant. He was an American, and they started to talk, and she told him about her cousin and her cousin's wife, and that they sponsored her to live in America, so she wasn't looking for citizenship. And she really fell in love with this guy, and this guy fell in love with her. But again, remember, she didn't tell him she was pregnant. At first, she didn't want to tell him because she didn't want to turn him off. Then she didn't tell him because she figured, well, it's not her child, so what does it matter? Well, it did matter, because he should have known that. And so should have Ocean and C known that she was, being intimate. And they didn't think that she was going to be intimate with another man. And at the end of the day, when someone's a surrogate, they do promise to keep their body somewhat pristine. They shouldn't be out there drinking and, kind of like living it up. And she was having some drinks, and, she was toking and stuff. And she wasn't like, hitting the substances hard, and she wasn't getting intoxicated all the time. But she definitely was living her own life, and without any regard to Ocean and Sea or to the child inside of her. So now, fast forward, she's about 6 months pregnant, and she starts to show a little bit. And so her boyfriend says to her, you're really starting to kind of put some weight on in the hips. He didn't mind. She wasn't getting fat. It wasn't like her body was changing. He actually liked that she was getting a little big in the butt. And he said to her, he's like, I really like it. You look good. And she's like, oh, well, it's because of all the restaurants that you're taking me out to and everything. And he was like, yeah. And, he proposed to her. He was like, you know what? I don't only want to take you out to restaurants and have you on weekends. I want to have you like every single day. I want you to move in with me. And as your citizenship is going through, I can help you get a job, because he knew she wasn't working at the time. He knew that she was living in the basement of her cousin's house. And so he really wanted to help her out. He proposed to her. He gave her a ring, and he asked her to marry him. And then he said, I want you to move in with me. And she accepted. So when she was 6 months pregnant, only like 3 months to go before she had the baby, she left the house of Ocean and Sea. Now, she knew that they weren't going to like it, so she didn't tell them. She just left when they were at work. She packed up everything, and she took off to her boyfriend's house. They didn't know she had a boyfriend, and they didn't know where she went. So they were looking for her for 3 months, and they couldn't find her. Could you imagine? They thought she got lost. They thought she was like hurt somewhere. And then, of course, it's not that they were selfish, but they were more worried about their child. And inside of them, they were thinking, she couldn't be fooling them. Like, why would she take off? It's not like they were giving her a bad deal. She had a really nice apartment to stay in. They were giving her money for her pocket, and they were taking very good care of her. But then they got a phone call. She went into early labor. Now, when she went into early labor, she was still hardly showing. Her boyfriend still thought she was only gaining weight. At this moment, she was with him for 3 months, living with him for 3 months. Now, she really didn't look like she was pregnant. She just looked like she always had gas, bloated belly. And he would always say to her, you know what, you're a little bloated. You should, take some, Metamucil or whatever. And she would just be like, yeah, it'll go down. Sometimes it just lasts like this for a couple of months. But she was just hoping that she would go in labor, call up sea and ocean, tell them to come get their baby at the hospital, and then, get rid of the baby and go back home to her boyfriend. Well, the plans in a person's heart don't always unfold the way they want them to, and that didn't happen. She went into labor as she was sleeping one night with her boyfriend. She started to get labor pains. She woke up, and it was just like traumatizing for her because she didn't want to wake him up. She didn't know what to do. Now, some people, when they go into labor, the baby comes immediately. She was having pains earlier during the day, and she was having like she didn't know they were contraction pains, because labor pains, because she was actually early. She was going into early labor a few weeks early. So she decided that she thought she needed to use the washroom. She thought they were gas pains. So she went to the toilet and she used the toilet, and boom, she pushed hard like it was a bowel movement, and the baby fell into the toilet. What did she do? She didn't know what to do. So there were a pair of scissors from her boyfriend's kit, his beard kit and everything. And she just picked that up and she cut the cord with those scissors. Could you imagine? Those scissors are not very big, and that cord is very strong. It's like an electrical cord, the umbilical cord. And she cut it, and then she tied it so the baby wouldn't, pass away. And then when the baby tried to cry, because right away the baby started to cry, she said there were no problems with the pregnancy or the delivery. The baby started to cry, and so she just kind of wrapped it up in towels, and she started to rock it to make it be quiet. And then she passed the placenta all on her own. Now, this is what happened. She tried to flush the placenta down the toilet instead of wrapping it in the garbage bag in the bathroom. When she tried to flush it down the toilet overflowed. It flooded over, and it just started to go everywhere. And of course, the sound of water flooding is going to wake anyone up. So her boyfriend woke up right away, and she had the bathroom door closed, and the water was just like gushing outside of the bathroom. And he was like, what's going on? And he's like, are you okay in there? And she's like, yeah, I'm okay. And he's like, hey, and so here he is thinking that she pooed and, overflooded the toilet because she's been so constipated. And he's thinking that she's embarrassed because of that. And he's like, look, just open the door. I need to plunge the toilet. And she's like, no, you can't come in here. Just give me a moment. And she didn't know what to do. So finally she unlocked the door, and he opened the door, and he looks at her. There's blood everywhere, and in her arms she's holding a baby. The baby was quiet, and she never had a baby before, but she instinctively knew to put the baby on her breast because she was watching videos prior to that. And it's not like she wanted all that to happen. She really was invested in being a really good surrogate, so she was watching videos and what to expect and how to breastfeed just in case she needed to breastfeed, because they had asked her if she could stay a few months more after the baby was born, just so she could pump her breast milk for them. Right? It was like a real good deal they were giving her, and she was in for it, like totally 100% into it. But so here he opens the door. She's sitting with a baby on her breast, and in the toilet it's just overflowing, and there's like this little fleshy cord that wouldn't go down. He was in shock. It was like he didn't know what to do. He immediately closed the bathroom door, called 911. 911 showed up. Oh, wait, before he closed the bathroom door, he turned the water faucet off by the toilet. He just closed the door quietly. He called 911. 911 showed up. They took her to the hospital. The plumber showed up and they plumbed you know, after birth, the placenta out of the bathroom and everything. And her boyfriend was so shocked, he didn't know what to think. You know, he was like beside himself. So she ended up going to the hospital, and Water and Ocean, I think I've been calling Water Ocean, sorry about that. Water and Ocean, the husband and wife, they showed up at the hospital to get their baby. The baby was totally fine, 100% checked out with everything with the APGAR test, you know, totally fine. Fingers, toes were all there, you know, was very reactive to the pricks and the pokes, and took to the breast right away. Nothing was wrong with the baby at all. But Water and Sea were so upset. They were so upset by the whole situation that they decided not to sponsor her. They decided to send her back here to the Dominican Republic. And so they canceled all the visa and everything. They took the baby, they went home, they canceled all the visa. They changed the locks on the door on the basement apartment. And Ocean didn't know what to do. She called her boyfriend and she tried to explain to her boyfriend that, you know, what was happening. And she didn't know what to say to him. She told him the truth, and he was like, so, like, he didn't know what to do. He's like, give me a couple of days to think about this. He's like, so now your citizenship is revoked. You're not going to be able to stay. You had this baby you didn't tell me about. And he had to confirm that it wasn't hers, that it was actually like a surrogate. And when he found out it was a surrogate, he was like, all right, you know, come back home. I love you, and we're going to work this out. Because for him, it was like, it's not like it was her baby. For him, at the end of the day, he felt like she was being used, like, you know, by her own family. And although she wasn't, she's a full grown woman. It was an agreement that the two of them made. He felt like she was getting the short end of the stick, because now that they couldn't use her, they were going to abuse her. That's what he felt, right? But that wasn't true. It was just that they were so traumatized, and he felt like he should have been the one that was the most traumatized because of what he saw and what he was not expecting. And, you know, it was a lot for him to get past, you know, the fact that she was pregnant, and the fact that she had the baby, and then the fact that he had to prove that the baby wasn't hers. And wow, I mean, could you imagine? Put yourself in his feet. Well, at the end of the day, she is now, you know, a citizen of America. She's working. She has a great job, and she's married, and she has a child with her husband. And yeah, I mean, we don't usually hear about stories like this, you know, it's really happy endings and when they're so traumatizing in the beginning. But I think it has a happy ending, and I think I can understand where she was coming from. I do feel that she was being a little too deceitful, and she should have been honest with him, because it was only 9 months and she could have worked it out with him, and he really loved her. I mean, she could have taken him home and introduced him to her cousin and her cousin's wife, and, you know, let him know that she is the surrogate, and, you know, stuff like that. But she was afraid that he would not accept her being pregnant. She was afraid that she would lose a great opportunity to be with a good man. And that's where I can see her point too, because not all men want to date a woman that's pregnant, right? Like a surrogate. Like some guys would be like, no, come message me when you're not pregnant any longer. Some guys may think, yeah, this is just a little weird. And then other guys may be like, hey, no problem. Like, can we still make love if you have this baby? Or, you know, it's a very different situation. I don't think many of us could actually judge in this situation. And for me, I don't like judging. I like trying to see two sides of the coin. And this side of the coin, I kind of see her point. I don't like that she lied. I don't like that she was deceitful to everyone involved. But I don't think she was only looking out for herself. I think she was just really put in certain circumstances where she was like, finally, I'm in love. Finally, I met the man of my dreams. Finally, I'm in America. Finally, I have a stable future. I don't have to rely on anyone for anything, and I'm going to make this about me. So I think she was very selfish in what she did, but at the same time, the other part of me feels like, wow, how tough must it be for someone that lives such an unpredictable, rough life, tough to make ends meet, never had an opportunity before, and doesn't really have the logic or the experience to deal with things in a mature fashion. I guess at the end of the day, she learned a lesson. Now, her relationship with her cousin and the wife, they reluctantly talk to her. She has communicated with them a few times. She's tried to add them on Facebook. She's tried to send them gifts, when the baby's birthday comes around. Now, the baby's not a baby any longer. The baby's a kid, full-grown kid now. But, she sends gifts. And they will thank her for the gifts. They will text message her and say thank you for the gift. She doesn't know if they'll ever talk to her again, like on the level that they did when they first gave her the proposal. But she understands that whatever they choose is their choice. So, guys, at the end of the day, if you're going to be a surrogate, be honest with everyone involved. And if you are getting a surrogate, make sure that you are very clear with the surrogate what rules are involved in the whole entire process. All right, guys, take care of yourself. Have a fabulous weekend. Or if you're listening to this during the week, have a fabulous week. All right, take care of yourself. Huge hugs, loads of love, big blessings. Be good to yourself out there.